Come with me and you'll be in a world of coffee caffeination. If you're there, you will see what you truly wish to drink. That didn't rhyme. So today I'm going to the AMC in Rockaway, New Jersey to go see the new Wonka movie. And this movie is actually based off of Roald Dahl's 1964 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book, and takes also heavy inspiration from the 1971 Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie that starred Gene Wilder. And it's directed by Paul King, who before this he was most famous for the Paddington movies. And this movie stars Timothée Chalamet, Kala Lane, Keegan-Michael Key, Patterson Joseph, Matt Lucas, Matthew Bainton, Sally Hawkins, Rowan Atkinson, Jim Carter, Tom Davis, Olivia Colman, and Hugh Grant. So back on Instagram, like I believe a year or two ago, I saw a first look of Timothée Chalamet dressed up as Willy Wonka. And since then, I was so excited to see this because both the 1971 Willy Wonka movie and Tim Burton's 2005 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory both hold a special place in my childhood. So getting to relive that once again is going to be so fun. And since I feel like today is a special occasion, I wanted to get all things chocolate related. So my coffee is toasted white chocolate and a double chocolate donut. Scrumdiddlyumptious. And if that wasn't enough, I'm gonna get some chocolate before the movie, because why not? Chocolate? Did you say chocolate? Yes, sir. With or without nuts. Chocolate? 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 Chocolate! Chocolate! Just a little bit of pre-movie shopping. So, I got this pretty good disc of the Blair Witch Project. No scratches at all. And, you know, in the year 2023, you gotta keep your CDs organized somehow. I have a whole lot of random CDs and DVDs that have no case on them. At least with this, I can just shove them in there, not worry about stepping on it. All right, time to get some candy before the movie. Who can make the sun rise? Sprinkle it with dew. Cover it in chocolate and a miracle or two. The Candyman. Oh boy, I can't wait to watch Wonka starring Timothée Chalamet. Alright, so the movie's over now. So let's drive up and eat out. Nope, scratch that, reverse it. I think this might also be the only time that I left the movies and it's not raining outside. Pretty nice. I'm gonna eat and do my review at the same time. This is gonna be a challenge to not get a copyright strike because of the music playing in here. Alright, so before I begin, spoiler warning. And this is pretty funny, this is the second time that I'm doing a review while I'm eating. If I can't block the music out on Final Cut, then I'll just put some music underneath, just to distract it. Aspiring chocolatier Willy Wonka travels in search of establishing his own chocolate business. And what's possibly soon to be in Switzerland or France, Wonka's dream is to open up a chocolate shop in the famous Galerie Gourmet shopping market. And Galerie Gourmet is where all the famous chocolatiers have established their own shops. So as Wonka is looking to establish himself, he's looking for a place to stay. It falls victim to these laundromat landlords, I would say, who are named Scrubbit and Bleacher. Clever. With a shady contract because Wonka is illiterate and he wasn't able to read the small print. And then one day as he goes to advertise his chocolate, he gets the attention of the chocolatiers, Slugworth, Broadnose, and Fickelgruber. That's a tongue twister. Slugworth decides to call the police and have them take his earnings for the day. But because of the contract, Wonka isn't able to pay back the hostel, so he's forced to work inside the laundromat for a while. And then during this, he befriends Noodle, who's an assumed orphan, Abacus, an accountant, and Piper, a plumber, and Lottie, who is a telephone operator. Abacus tells Wonka that the three men he encountered are part of this chocolate cartel and stomp out any competition within the Gallery Gourmet market. And these men also have a lair underneath the city's cathedral where they all meet up together, and the chief of police in the city and the chocolatiers work together to make sure there's no competition. I'm really hungry. Scrumdiddlyumptious. And this cathedral is guarded by a chocoholic priest and monks, so it's difficult for them to get in. In order to inch his way into the chocolate business, Wonka plans to escape each day underneath the landlord's noses in order to gather ingredients and also do some guerrilla marketing for his chocolate. He does this with the help of Noodle, and then eventually he gets the other people who were under the contracts to help along with him and become business partners. Meanwhile, Wonka is pursued by an Oompa Loompa named Lofty who consistently steals chocolate from him. Wonka came around and stole the ingredients from him from Loompa Land. And then eventually, the cartel and the chief finally discover what Wonka's been doing underneath their noses. And then they go to Scrub It to inform her about all that's been happening and trying to put a stop to it. So then Scrub It and possibly Bleacher too, they decide to poison Wonka's chocolate with an ingredient called Yeti Sweat that causes a whole bunch of weird hair growth. And the people who were shopping there are so shocked by this that they destroy his store. That just leaves him feeling completely and utterly hopeless after so many expectations for him to make it big, and then just for it to go. After his store's destroyed, the cartel comes to visit, and they say that if he agrees to leave the city and never make chocolate again, each of the people that he worked with will get their debts paid. So then Wonka agrees to this, but Noodle is left in the hostel because of other circumstances. And the Oompa Loompa Lofty boards the same ship as him that's leaving, but then motivates Willy to fight back against the chocolatiers. And then the two of them also narrowly avoid death because the ship that they were on had explosives and they got off just in time. But the chocolatiers had no clue about that. Noodle is then rescued later on by Wonka and the other business partners. And she's actually informed that she's related to Slugworth, and he's her uncle. He didn't want to give up the family fortune to her, so he was like, okay, you're going away, so I can have all the money to myself. This quesadilla is really good. Abacus tells Wonka that there's an accounting book that lists all the illegal payments and trades that have been happening for the chocolate cartel to make the chief of police stay silent about all of their shady business. So then Noodle and Wonka, along with the other partners, they decide to form a heist so they can distract the police and the chocolatiers so they can get into the lair and look for the accounting book. Right before they achieve their plan, they're discovered by the cartel, and they decide in retaliation to drown Noodle and Wonka in chocolate. And then with all hope seemingly lost, Lofty returns to actually help them escape. And then after they escape, they tell the truth about what the men have been up to with the chief of police. And then the men, along with the chief, this puts an end to their shenanigans. I couldn't find a better word for that. And then the chocolatiers, they float away because of Wonka's hover chocks that they ate. And the hover chocks are these pieces of chocolate that have a delayed reaction where once you consume it and then you wait a little while, then you start floating. And then in celebration, Wonka decides to give the bar of chocolate away that he's been holding on to This bar of chocolate was actually a gift from his mom, who passed on before the events of this movie took place. And with a little note on a golden ticket, it says, I'm going to be paraphrasing here because I don't remember what I read. Chocolate isn't just good by itself, but it's good when you have people to share it with. Wonka and then the other people who have helped him out, they enjoy the moment together. And Wonka also says, I wish I could make this moment last forever. It hits hard. Doodle's informed that the telephone operator, Lottie, has actually found out where her mom has ended up, and she became a librarian at the city's library. Her and Wonka decide to go visit her, and then while Wonka's there, Lofty comes by to say, hey, you still need to repay me with those chocolates. He gets a jar, but then Wonka convinces Lofty to stay while he's opening a new factory, so Lofty can be the taste tester, which I think is pretty cool, leading it into the events of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, essentially. All right, so that's the movie. And I gotta say, the musical numbers were actually quite entertaining and actually helped move the story along quite a bit. It was also pretty cool because it had callbacks to the 1971 Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, which I expected from this, but it was still pretty cool to see. The theme of it's a very lighthearted movie and had a lot of wholesome moments in it, but never really took itself too seriously. And some interesting observations. For a PG movie, I wasn't expecting the amount of teenage adult references that they would have in this, but it happened. But it sort of happened in a way that kids would understand and still could find funny. And although it takes heavy inspiration from the 1971 Willy Wonka movie, it was never completely relied on to carry the story. In the Flash movie that came out earlier this year, where a lot of the callbacks that were in that movie just never really seemed to justify its existence in this new story. And it only seemed like the Flash movie was made just for the sake that they could get Michael Keaton's Batman back. But this movie is good enough to stand on its own, even if you don't have prior knowledge of the 1971 movie. And with that, one more thing before I forget. I've also noticed that a lot of movies nowadays seem to have this self-awareness that, stops a story dead in its tracks, and it's like, wait, what are we doing here? Doing this thing. And honestly, I don't mind it, but it can be quite distracting with the story. And no ounce of self-awareness can help fix a story. So if characters are constantly going like, what are we doing here? Well, that's something that we got to deal with. I know a lot of other people have noticed it and are starting to catch on to this cliche, if you would say, or trope. But it's nice to see that there are other movies that are releasing nowadays in the late 2010s and early 2020s that stick to more conventional storytelling, but also understanding that's how most audiences see these movies nowadays, with all the self-awareness. And they're like, okay, we're aware of self-awareness, but we'll guide the story along in a way that we feel is appropriate for the characters and the plot. And this movie did have little bits of it, but it wasn't to a ridiculous extent where it distracted you from what you were watching. I'd say it's a pretty good viewing experience, and if you want a movie to watch with your family or by yourself on a random Thursday, I'd say this is a good pick. So with that, I'd give the movie 4 out of 5. It's pretty good, but it's not perfect. I don't think I've rated a movie 5 out of 5 yet, but when that time comes, it'll happen. I'd like to thank you for watching this new episode of Recap and Review. And if you want to see any more content that I have, check the playlist of other Recap and Review videos, or follow my social media to stay updated for further content. And with that being said,